Good morning, Springfield Baptist Church family. I hope that this last day of 2020 finds you well. It's been a strange year, and I'm sure that many of us are glad to see it in the rearview mirror. Some have suffered significant loss or gone through times of struggle. For others, there has been upheaval and life change. Now we find ourselves in the middle of another round of restrictions and wondering what 2020 will be. Through all of this, we rest in the reality that God is on the throne, that He loves us, and that He is at work for good in the lives of His people. Still, the difficulties are present, and in our community, we know that with these difficulties, there's been some growing tension. We've seen reports in the news of fear and frustration, and maybe in the course of our conversation with others, or even in our own hearts, we've experienced some of the same. That's not surprising in a broken world. As we continue our year-long read through the scriptures, the calendar the church family has been following finds us in Job right now. And Job has a quote that's stuck in my mind for many years. In fact, I first read it as a little boy when Linus spoke it in Charles Schulz's Peanuts. Linus, quoting Job, said, "Man is born to trouble as surely as the sparks fly upward." It's been fitting to end December 2020 reading chapters in both Job and in Revelation. Job is the earliest book in Scripture, about a man who lived even before the nation of Israel existed. Revelation is the final book in Scripture and speaks of the future end of human history. And yet, both of them show us the reality of trouble and struggle and humans living in a broken world, a world broken by sin, to which we have contributed, but also a world ultimately under the hand of a sovereign God. If you've been reading with us, you know that Job goes through a much more devastating version of 2020 than I would hope any of us have experienced. He loses most of his family, all of his wealth, and his livelihood, and his physical health. In the middle of all of this, as he sits mourning in the dust, scraping painful skin lesions, and wondering why, three of his so-called friends show up. Initially, we think that they're there to provide comfort. As it turns out, they're there to tell Job how he has brought all of this on himself. The book is a fascinating conversation, and the friends talk a lot about the various aspects of God's character and nature. At one point in our reading, Joanne said to me, "A lot of what they say about God is right." I said to her, "Yes, that's true." She, knowing the general overview of Job, said, "But they're presented in this book as being in the wrong." I said, "Yes, because though they have pieces of it right, in the end, the reason why they are speaking and what they're trying to do with their words is wrong." Eliphaz, Bildad, and Elihu, the three friends, end up facing God's rebuke and punishment for how they used those truths about him. They saw themselves as men who understood all that God was doing, and so they felt that they had the authority to be involved in judging Job alongside of God. In fact, they seemed to think that they were co-judges. So while many parts of what they say is right, much of their reason for saying it is not right. It's weaponized truth, spoken from a place of arrogance. In the end, God commands Job's friends to go to him and apologize. He tells them that they have to ask this man sitting there in the dust, who they thought was under God's judgment, to pray for them. Job does. God accepts his prayer, they're forgiven, and Job is restored. His health is restored, his finances are restored, and he has 10 children. And in all of this, he learns much about the character and nature of God. There are a number of important and life-shaping truths for us in this poem. And when I say life-shaping, I mean that these are large foundational principles for life guidance. We see, for instance, the need for humility when it comes to how much we think we know and what we declare authoritatively about the mind of God. Now, he has shown us himself in his word and in the world that he has created. He has given us guidance and he's given us truth to live by. But it's possible to arrogantly presume that we speak with the mind of God and to think that we have a place on the throne of judgment alongside of him. as we relate to others. But the truth is, only God ultimately knows the mind of God. With that, we also see the need to speak truth for the right reasons. In Paul's letter to the church at Ephesus, he talks about the need to speak the truth in love. Truth spoken in love is very different than truth spoken to hurt and cut and tear down, or truth spoken so I can puff myself up, even when some of the content is the same. Now, what I'm saying here isn't new to most of you who are listening. Most of us have heard something similar many times before. But in times of frustration and tension, we need to be reminded. I need to be reminded. At least some of us have found 2020 to be such a time of tension and frustration. And so we need to be reminded. As we leave this year in the rear view, then, maybe even as we think about resolutions for 2021, let us humbly and gratefully consider what it means that God is on the throne and He only is on the throne of judgment. We don't share the seat of judgment. And let us be people who speak truth that is not only truth in content, but also loving in intent. Thanks for being with me today. I pray that you have a good day and that tomorrow, as we begin January 1st, 2021, you will enjoy the blessing and provision and kindness of God. Have a great day.